So this is it, the 2021 Isuzu D-Max for the Philippines. Now, by the time you see this, the Isuzu D-Max will already be on sale in our market. Actually, we're the third country worldwide to be able to get this new generation D-Max. The first was Thailand, then Australia, and now us. But we are also the first market to be able to get it with the steering wheel on the correct side, the left. And Isuzu is giving us a preview drive of this all-new D-Max, but understandably, because it hasn't been launched yet, we are in a limited access area. That means also our driving and our ability to test this is also limited, so we'll reserve the full review for later on. For now, we'll take you on a more guided tour of what they've changed with this new generation model, because holy cow, there is a lot. Now, normally at AutoIndustriya, we'd start with the look of any vehicle we take a look at. But not this time, because with the D-Max, with what they did to this new vehicle, we need to start with the foundation, much like a house. We need to talk about the chassis of it. When it comes to the frame of the D-Max, Isuzu says almost half of it is high-strength steel. So that means they can use a little bit thinner material but achieve the same or even better strength. And that means a weight savings of around 8 kilograms on the frame alone. Now, I wish Isuzu had a rolling chassis for us to show you, to demonstrate what's new with the vehicle, but well, removing the wheels will do for now. When it comes to the frame, Isuzu did change it from a 6 cross-member design to now an 8 cross-member design. So that means it has a better resistance to twisting. As engineers would call it, it's better torsional rigidity. So that should improve the drive overall. Now, with the rear wheels removed, we can see the new leaf spring design on the D-Max. It's got 3 leaves, and Isuzu says it's got better ride quality overall and noise suppression. For example, you can see that there are pads on the first leaf, so to prevent a little bit of extra noise when you're going over a bump. One more thing important to note here is that on the rear diff for this 4x4 variant, there is a breather line. So if you've driven an Isuzu before through a flood, you would know that sometimes water gets in your differential, which kind of sucks. So now they've got a breather line that goes all the way up here. That's a welcome addition for those who have to cross floods on a fairly regular basis. Now, with the front wheel off, we can see what Isuzu changed with the suspension of the D-Max. For one, they changed the geometry. The mounting of the upper control arm is a bit different compared to before. They've also used thicker steel with a lot of, the suspension components. For example, the anti-roll bars is no longer mounted here on the knuckle, I think. It's now here, and it's a lot thicker than before. Also, the lower control arm is much thicker than before. They've made a few more changes here and there, particularly also with the brakes. These are bigger and should help in overall braking and heat dissipation when you're cornering and braking. Overall, what Isuzu was trying to address, and you would know this if you drove a D-Max before, is the body roll or the handling of the vehicle. The previous D-Max, it tended to roll around the corners, not very confident when you're driving it at high speed around a bend. This one, based on our drive of it earlier, is a lot better. Now, if you're familiar with the previous Isuzu D-Max, then the difference compared to this one is really night and day. It's apples and oranges. It's completely different. The design of this new one is much more premium, much more cohesive, much more clean. Isuzu has used a lot of better materials with the interior. Like here, for example, we like the soft touch on the dash. It's synthetic leather, yes, but the stitching here, the contrast stitching, is real. It's real stitching. That's pretty nice. There is also a definite improvement in terms of the buttons that you have, the controls for the vehicle. The buttons here are a lot better than the previous model. You have your volume here. You have your ADAS here. We'll tell you about that later. Then you have your power window switches. They're a lot better in terms of overall feel. We actually tested these windows too, and These now have anti-jam protection. Don't test it with your finger. I used the manual and put it in there and it actually worked. Then you have the climate control unit. In the LSE, it's a dual zone climate control system. The switches here are a lot better. It does make a bit of noise at when you have it on the high fan setting, but that's normal. Unfortunately, the D-Max, even in the LSE trim, it has one of my biggest pet peeves, and that is blank spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and one more here on the steering wheel, 12. So we wish they kind of filled that all up with features, or just created a panel that would remove the blank spaces entirely. Isuzu retained the cup holders on the AC vents on either side of the dashboard. So one here and then one there. They have bigger bottle holders on the doors. The guys at Isuzu say it can accommodate up to 1.5 liters in terms of the bottle. But I don't have one with me to test, so we'll take their word for it on that one. One thing that's really different is this cup holder here. It's a lot deeper. So with my phone, it's really just gobbled it all up. Your phone can also go here, can live right here. It's actually a nice space. Isuzu didn't put a wireless charger. That's one thing we were asking them about, but the LSE doesn't have it yet. Now, in terms of compartments, you actually have quite a few here in the D-Max. Sunglasses go here. You have one here by the driver's knee for your wallet or even your RFID cards. You have a compartment here that's not that big, but you can get some stuff in there as well. You've got a split glove box, one lower for your manual, and then one upper for other things like maps, if you still use maps. But one big but somewhat minor improvement is this one right here. Because if you have a previous D-Max, when you press the button, the glove compartment tended to stay closed because when you press it down, the button is on the lid, so it doesn't want to open. This one, they've moved the button to the dash top. Finally. In terms of features, your sales agent will have a tough time explaining the many features of the D-Max LSE if you're looking for the LSE variant. For example, you've got a new 10.1 inch screen from AVT fitted by Isuzu as an original equipment for their vehicle. So it's big, it's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I've got my phone plugged in. It's having no problems with it at all. You've also got a very unique speaker system in the D-Max LSE, because if we count the speakers, you'll find out why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 more on the ceiling, 7 and 8. It's a full surround sound system. We tried it out earlier, and yeah, it really does live up to the hype. We kind of wish it had a subwoofer underneath because the bass is a little bit lacking, if that's what you're after in your D-Max. The instrument cluster on the D-Max LSE looks a lot better than before. You've got a speedometer on your right and then a tachometer on your left. But the thing that's new is the central LCD, the multi-info display unit. It's full color. It has your fuel economy, average, speed, trip meter, and all that. You can also control a lot of the vehicle functions there, particularly with the ADAS. So you've got your gear selector here. You have P, R, and D, the usual. You have your sport mode to the right. You push to shift up, pull to shift down. You have your transfer case control here, so you can go to 4 high and then 4 low. Unfortunately, if you're looking for an electronic diff lock, this one does not have it. That one they reserved for the 4x4 manual, for the more hardcore off-roaders. To start your D-Max, you press the ignition button here because you've got 2 smart keys over here. The engine is actually running right now, and normally when we do these interior reviews, we'll have the engine shut off because it tends to be noisy, particularly in a diesel vehicle. But as a testament to the reduction in noise in the D-Max, we can talk to you while the engine is running. So what's really changed with the Isuzu D-Max is their target market. Now they're going for a more lifestyle set, and that means they have to put a lot of features that you didn't really see in a D-Max before. So one thing they're really highlighting here is the ADAS, or the Advanced Driver Assist System. In other markets, they call it as the IDAS, which is the Intelligent Driver Assist System. Whichever the case, the features are largely the same. So, for example, you get adaptive cruise control in this vehicle. It's the first for the D-Max range. You have autonomous emergency braking. That is also a first for the D-Max range. Lane departure warning, turn assist, automatic high beam, and blind spot monitoring. A lot of this is actually controlled or sensed or detected via a dual camera system right here, similar to what you would find in, say, a Subaru. But in the case of the D-Max, it's housed here. It's a bit more tucked in than in other models from other car manufacturers. You've got your anti-lock brakes, you've got your traction control here, you have your bigger brakes, and you have 7 airbags. Previous D-Maxes only had 2 airbags. This one has 7. So 1, 2, side airbags, 3, 4, curtain airbags, 5, 6. Number 7 is the driver's knee. There is one thing I want to point out that you won't find in the brochure, and that is the Mazda connection. Because unlike before, when Isuzu was partnered up with the General Motors or Chevrolet, and Mazda was partnered up with Ford, now Mazda and Isuzu are actually teamed up for the D-Max. So the D-Max is Isuzu's version, and then you have Mazda's version, which is the new generation BT50, which we don't have yet. But we can see a bit of the influence already with the D-Max, particularly with the driving ergonomics. It just feels a lot better. The seat really feels good compared to the previous model. The driving ergos, it just feels more natural. I can just find a more natural position. Oh, by the way, the steering wheel is tilt and telescopic. So yeah, you can find a position that suits pretty much any kind of body shape out there. So here's the back seat of the D-Max LSE. Everything is done in leather. It looks very comfortable, and it is actually comfortable. The cushioning is really nice. You got individual headrests. You've got an armrest here with 2 cup holders, individual seat belts, and all 3 point. That's very important for safety. You've got child seat anchors on either side. For comfort and convenience, well, you have a hook here for cargo and little bags. You've got an AC system here. It's actually a blower unit from the front, and you can set it to either side. And then you've got a USB charging point for your convenience. One thing Isuzu really improved on here is getting in and out of the actual back seat, because they put grab handles here and they improved the tow room down there. So here's the engine bay of the all-new Isuzu D-Max. It looks very familiar because all truck engine bays look pretty much the same, but there are quite a few differences here and there. First off, there are 2 engine options. One is the RZ4E, the 1.9-liter turbo diesel, and you can find those in other Isuzu D-Max variants here. It's a carryover from before. This one, however, is new. It's a 4JJ engine, but it's not the 4JJ1. This is a 4JJ3. It has a lot of improvements with the internals, the components, the turbo, and everything else in between, really. Overall, the power has now been improved from 170 from the 177 from the 4JJ1 to 190 horsepower for the 4JJ3. Maximum torque has also been bumped up by 70 Newton meters from 380 up to 450. Another important improvement is when the torque comes in. Instead of coming in at a maximum of 1800 RPM to around 2600, this one comes in at 1600 RPM. So that is going to be a big improvement in terms of overall fuel economy. And also at 1400 RPM, you've already got, I think, 400 Newton meters of torque. So plenty of torque down low for a truck that you want to be able to put to work. This is the LSE 4x4, which means it has a selectable 4-wheel drive system. So it gives you more grip or more traction when you're taking it off-road. But if you're a serious off-roader, the one you want to be looking at is the manual version of the 4x4, because that one gets the far more important differential lock system in the back. But we won't close the engine bay just yet. A couple more things we need to point out with this version. For example, there's a structure here. It's been supposedly reworked according to Isuzu, better protect the engine in the event of a crash. So if you look down there, there's quite a few more supports to be able to give it a bit more protection. Another thing we want to point out is some of the units we've read about abroad, particularly in Australia, they say that it has an electronic power steering unit. But in this one, it's not, because we had to check it with the manual. Here is the power steering fluid. So we still have a hydraulic power steering unit for the D-Max, but after I drove it earlier, it feels like an electronic unit. So that's why we had to double check, because it's a new variable unit that gives you lighter steering at the idle speeds or low speeds, and then tightens it all up when you're driving at faster speeds. But here is a more subtle but very important upgrade, and it concerns the positioning of the engine, actually the whole powertrain. Isuzu says they've moved the engine back just a little bit to be able to call it a front midship design. It sounds strange to hear that in a pickup truck, but the effect is going to be very important, because they've now shifted the weight of the engine, the transmission, and all the other components a bit further back and more into the wheelbase. The effect is going to be important because, one, it will improve basically the handling of the vehicle. It should help reduce the body roll overall, and that is something a lot of D-Max models are known for. I drove it yesterday. We weren't cornering that hard, but yes, the effect is definitely felt, considering all the other improvements with the vehicle overall. But perhaps the most important upgrade with the D-Max is right here, and it's the most obvious one. The original or the previous D-Max had the intake right down here, and that means the water weighting was around 600 or 700 millimeters, depending on where you check. But with this 2021 model, the air inlet is up here, and the improvement is immediate because that raises up the intake right away. And Isuzu now claims the D-Max can weigh up to 800 millimeters of water. Yep, that's going to be put to the test on our kind of roads, but again, do so at your own risk. So here's the back of the all-new Isuzu D-Max. As you can tell, there are plenty of things new with this vehicle, with the design. But one thing we want to point out is the bumper. It's now an integrated unit with the design of the vehicle. It's no longer a chrome-style unit here in the back. It's got a step over there. You've got your rear view camera here and your handle here. When you open it, the important numbers to remember in terms of inches is 56, 56, and 19 and a half. So it's 56 inches deep or long, 56 inches wide, like from here, and then about 19 and a half inches tall for the height of the bed. Between the wheel arches, it's 43 inches. So keep that in mind if you're loading stuff into the D-Max. Also, one thing you need to keep in mind is that there is no helper spring. So when you're lifting it up, it will feel a bit hefty. So that's the bed of the all-new Isuzu D-Max. Actually, if you're short on cargo space, you can use the roof rails on top. On some pickup models, those roof rails are actually just ornaments for design only, but those are perfectly functional. If you put a roof rack on it, you can carry upwards of 100 kilograms overall. I think that also factors in the weight, the roof rack itself. And that brings us nicely to the design of the all-new D-Max. Yes, this one is definitely a looker compared to the one it replaced. The headlights are sharper. They got bi-beam LEDs on this LSE version with the nicer DRLs. We like the black grille. Isuzu really took out a lot of the chrome compared to before. Really modernized this truck, which is now more lifestyle oriented, for people who want a truck they can use every day and something that's comfortable but can also be put to work. The only thing we really wish that Isuzu changed are the wheels. We're not huge fans of those wheels that they picked for this D-Max, but overall, we can't really complain. We'll still reserve our final opinion on the D-Max when we do get a full test drive of it. But for now, if you want to be able to sample one, you can just head on over to your nearest Isuzu dealership to find out more about this new truck from Isuzu. This is Vince of AutoIndustriya. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, click that thumbs up. You can also subscribe. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and on Twitter.